and it's a good thing. So before our next speaker comes on board, so I'm calling on Darlington, and it's going to just give you a preview of how a StackNet contract works. Please just clap for him as he comes up. Okay. Okay, which one is it? So if you want to also know more about StackNet and Cairo, there is an African community, StackNet Africa. You can also like search on Twitter, there's StackNet Africa, and join the Telegram group, and you'll be attended and onboarded on. So
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. All right. So I don't exactly have a specific speaking slot. So like, I have less than 10 minutes. We're going to do what we can do. So I think thus far we've talked a lot about Stacknet architecture. Someone mentioned ZKPs, and my colleague mentioned stacks. So basically, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be giving us like a brief rundown of stacks and why we think stacks are superior and like they are the end game. And okay, just next slide. Yeah, so my name is Darlington, and I work as the ecosystem associate at Agent. Agent is a blockchain wallet company that's focused on account abstraction, basically. Okay, and okay. So we're just going to be touching. There's a lot of things. Basically, this slide is detailed, so I'll just probably share it in case you're interested. But we're not going to talk about a lot of all these things. So, but the whole idea is we're going to look at computational integrity. If I just go to the next slide. Okay, computational integrity. So, we're going to start with looking at delegated versus inclusive accountability. So, when we talk about with financial transactions, when we talk about how money flows, right? There's always the idea of accountability. We want to hold people accountable for their actions. So, with the traditional financial model, we use a system of delegated accountability where we believe that, for example, people during the financials in a financial traditional system, right, where transactions are carried out, there needs to be like a sense of trust. So you need to be able to trust that this person will do the right thing. But even with that trust, right, we can trust that we would give our money to Zenith Bank and Zenith Bank would do the right thing because we believe that in a case where Zenith Bank does the wrong thing, we have systems set up like the CBN, the laws and regulations that should hold these guys accountable. Are we following? So the whole idea is that we have certain people who've delegated this accountability to. So we believe that this is how the whole system is supposed to work. But in case it doesn't work that way and one party is malicious, we believe that there are certain people that can hold these guys accountable for their actions. Are we following? All right. So, but with the blockchain, we tend to achieve what we call inclusive accountability. So, thanks to the blockchain, we now have systems where we can carry out transactions without any need for trust. And of course, we know that the way this is achieved with blockchains is through something we call naive replay. So we have nodes set up. Of course, I'm not going to start explaining how the blockchain works, but we know that we have nodes set up, and every transaction that is executed, every node will like re-execute these transactions, right? Now, the problem with this is that these systems they face a scalability bottleneck because probably when things are young and there are not a lot of transactions going on, it's possible for every node to like re-execute this transaction. But then as the system begins to expand, we begin to run into a whole lot of issues. For example, we know that Ethereum, the space, for example, if you want to run a full node, you need a whole lot of space in the system with like very advanced specifications, right? Now this automatically begins to create like what's it called? It creates a kind of gatekeeping system where like you don't have a lot of persons able to access this system. And we know that the power of decentralization is in the ability of people to partake in it, right? So if we have fewer and lesser persons partaking in decentralization, automatically we begin to lose everything we know as decentralization. So we can now imagine a system where we have just very powerful persons, very powerful rich persons able to run nodes, right? It means that these guys can now go to the point where they can begin to censor transactions and carry out malicious acts. So we want to ensure that we create a system where every simple person, every single person, whether rich or poor, can actually like set up nodes and do all those things, right? So now the question is, how can we create a system that is inclusively accountable and can scale? So that brings us to proof systems. So my colleague talked about ZKPs, another person talked about stacks and whole, right? So, but then there's a lot of write up. But the first model of a proof system was introduced by Shafi Goldwasser, Mikhaili, and Rakov. That was in 1985, right? And basically, the whole idea was there was this the first proof systems were like interactive. I don't have a lot of time. I would have really wanted us to go into all these things, but then let's go to the main important part. So the whole idea of proof systems, right, is to achieve integrity through math. So the question now, if you look at the screen, right, the big question we want to answer is, how can we make it possible for one simple computer to be able to monitor the operations of the head of computers without um, we executing the transactions those computers have executed. Now, this is it, right? So, as you can see from here, we have supercomputers, a whole lot of supercomputers. So, these guys are executing a whole lot of transactions. I want to use this simple laptop, right, to monitor the transactions of these computers. But the thing here is, we cannot re-execute the transactions this guy is carrying out because we don't have the computing power to do so. But the question is, how do we ensure that okay, this guy can truly um, monitor the execution of transactions so that guy is doing that. And of course, if we want to do that, we cannot recompute. Like I said, that's a big no. So that's what proof systems help us do. So we have different proof systems used within the blockchain. As you can see, there's a whole lot of them. So this is like blockchain usage statistics as at February 2023. So as you can see, we have the shield-like one is for privacy, systems that use privacy, that use proof systems for privacy. And we have the whole clocked in for scalability, right? And as you can see, for most proof systems used within blockchains are for scalability. That's why, like my colleague pointed out earlier, we tend to call them validity rollups rather than ZK rollups because they do not exactly have notion of privacy. So calm down now. So as I was saying, so as you can see, there are just a very few of them. For example, we have Monero, we have Zcash, we have Aztec. I think those are the very popular ones. Okay, let's just go to the next one. So the question is, why would there are a lot of like proof systems? Why are there very few that are used within blockchain systems? And that's because there are certain bottlenecks that like stop us from using these proof systems. Okay, so next one. All right. So and the first, of course, is because theory to practice takes a hell lot of time. So researchers are amazing. Like if you've seen people that do mathematical research, those guys are amazing. They can sit down, write a whole lot of things. But the problem is most times their expectations are very unrealistic, and it's very difficult to take theory in paper to like working representations of these things, and that's like one of the biggest bottlenecks. The second is like to replace existing tech. Of course, you need an unarguably better tech, right? To replace an existing system, you need something that's way better. And most times, in fact, most pro systems, if you go through their papers, it's more like a copy of the previous, and then they just try to edit a few things. Then, of course, there's productization and development because, for example, what we do with Stacknet, we try to ensure that the normal person or the normal developer does not have a need to understand how zero knowledge proof works, does not need to understand how stacks works and a whole lot of other things. We tend to create high level tools you can use to like interact and do all those things, right? And of course, the last one is tech standardization takes time, so it takes a whole lot of time to standardize tech. Then of course, introduction to stacks. We're not reading all this, don't worry. But the only thing you need to know is that zero knowledge stack stands for, as you can see, zero knowledge, scalable, transparent argument of knowledge, right? And of course, it's a cutting edge cryptographic scheme. And the biggest difference between it and snacks, right, is that Of course, that's always the biggest argument, that there are no trusted setups and uses rather advanced cryptographic caching functions, right? Then stacks versus others, a technical comparison. Of course, there are different processes it takes to like convert computations to proofs. The first of them is arithmetization. So arithmetization is a process whereby you represent computations in polynomials. So for you to be able to like prove, to create zero knowledge proofs of like computations, right? You need to be able to represent those problems in polynomials, because with polynomials we can like measure the degree, this what we call low degree testing, right? We can measure the degree to which how far your computation can like be right or be malicious. Let's just go to the next. So that's the low degreeness I talked about, right? So that's the second major process most proof systems go through, right? For arithmetization, there are not a lot of difference between proof systems, but we begin to see differences when we go into the low degreeness. For example, different systems use different low degreeness for testing, right? For example, Stacks uses what we call uses a polynomial commitment scheme we call fast read Solomon interactive oracle of proximity, right? Of proof. That's called FRI. And in the next slide, we have like differences between both of them. And of course, as you can see, FRIs are like a little bit better or way better. And also the biggest argument, of course, is cryptographic assumptions. There's always that argument that stacks are quantum resistant. Of course, we might not see the invention of quantum computers probably till like 2030. We want to create systems that are quantum resistant, in that systems that will not break in the future if quantum computers come into existence, right? And of course, that's like one of the biggest advantage of stacks, right? Then let's just go to so superiority of stacks. Let's just see some normie English. For example, privacy. With stacks, you can create private applications. You can with stacks you can create scalable applications. With stack you can create universal applications. That you can carry out any computations. There's transparency, of course. There's no need for toxic waste. There's no need for any trusted setup, and there's been a battle hardened cryptography. Then there's a tutorial on building your own stack prover from scratch. Of course, it's in Python, and when I tried it, it was a whole lot of hell going through, but it's actually very easy. And when you do it, you would have a real sense of achievement. And um, there are no time for questions, but in case you have questions or you want to try out anything, don't worry, I'm still around during the conference. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that session, Darlington. So please don't forget, follow him on Twitter. And if you have any question, you can ask him. There's a StarkNet Africa community. Follow him on X.